Okay, here we are on gaining experience. We had a problem with the other stream. Hopefully, all people will find this. So, I'm Corey, True Evil Bob, guy in charge of the channel, and this is the RPG. This is Howard, and today, gaining experience, of course, is where we live chat about role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons or Vampire or Numenera or Star Wars or whatever you're into. We try and get to everything, right? Right.
Right.
You're coughing there.
I did. I muted it, right?
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Anyway,
So yeah,
oh,
Howard,
you go ahead.
go ahead.
All right, so today's show, I want to talk about. I see like 5 questions come up on the different forums and streams that are about role playing. Mostly, these 5 are the same ones that always come up about how can I be a dungeon master? How do you get behind the screen and actually just start running the game? Because it's a lot to take in all at once. Super intimidating to a lot of people. So I took the 5 questions I thought that best summed that up, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to try and answer all 5 if we have time.
Excellent. As always, this is a live stream, so please feel free to comment, and we will try and get to those comments on the next stream. Or if you're watching this live, you can just leave a comment. You can start talking to us, and we'll respond. So we start out with a little game, a little icebreaker, called "I Did Not See That Coming" with the worst graphic in the world.
You always brag about how bad that graphic is. I know you've had time.
I worked hard on making it bad. That's how much pride I have in its badness. So how this game works is one of us comes up with a hook, an RPG hook, something that like a little plot that happens in the game, and the other person gives it a little twist, makes it a little different. And then the other person goes, and vice versa. So, would you like to start out, Howard?
Sure, I'll go. All right. Your party is just meeting. You're all sitting in a bar.
So this is fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I generally will go towards fantasy because mostly we do Dungeons and Dragons talk around here, and for me, that's the most fun of the different genres. So anyway, your party is in a bar. You have not actually met yet. So the bartender says, "Hey, one of my regulars is missing. He's a fisherman. There's a lake out front, just on the other side of the road. I will, if anybody will go out and check on him, I will give you free drinks for the night." And of course, your party members, hopefully being new players with very little money, will take them up on this. But you gotta make it interesting. So then,
they go out to find the barkeep's buddy, right? And they find him being shaken down by some thugs that he's borrowed money, and these guys are trying to make him pay him back. And this guy's like, I can't go anywhere now. I can't do anything until I pay these guys back. You gotta help me. You gotta help me, adventurers.
all right, and hopefully that'll start to unite your new players as their characters come together and deal with this threat.
Yes.
And also get free drinks.
All I was doing was trying to help my family. I got one for you. It's a fantasy.
All right.
So the players, they come upon a shipwrecked guy, and they nurse him back to health, and they find out that he's a messenger from one country going to another country to give the monarchy a deal or a message that may prevent a war. But his ship was attacked, maybe in hopes that he would die and the message would never be received. And the assassins may still be out there. But
All right. But he's got to get that message through. So he will offer the party a king's ransom, basically, to help him get this message through. And when they arrive to deliver the message, it turns out he was the assassin, and he slays the king, and the party brought the assassin in.
Oh. So it was a crisscross.
Double cross.
Preyed on people's their nice ways to get to actually see the king.
Trust no one.
So let's start teaching people how to game master the 5 basic questions. So
right.
The first question is, how do you get behind that game master screen and actually run the game?
So the way that I look at this is you first start with a basic plot in your head. You don't need to write out a 4-page book because you don't know what's going to happen. Your players are going to go every which direction anyway. But let's take a simple sample plot. You want a necromancer, that's the wizards that summon zombies and skeletons and control them, to create an army to attack a stronghold. There's your basic plot. Now you got to, at the beginning of the game, you're going to have to help your players make characters. Let's say first guy makes an elf ranger because he likes Lord of the Rings, Legolas, and then you have another guy who makes a human fighter, and he likes that folk hero background, and he's like, all right, I want people to be like, yeah, he's here to save us. I want to have that effect when I walk into the room. And then, of course, you're going to have your emo kid. He's going to make your tiefling warlock sage. I'm using all males here. I think it's great if you get females to play with you, mix it up, or all female games. I'm just using males to speed it along. So you have your tiefling warlock because charisma works great. He's going to be very charismatic, but he's using that to do deals with demons and cast spells. He's going to take the sage background because it gives him this cool, like, a lot of wizardy stuff without actually being a wizard. So he was apprenticed to one before he found a book and became a warlock. All right, so we have characters. Next, you need to find a way for those characters to get involved in your plot. And this is where you look at their backgrounds that they've made, and you really work them together. Your elf ranger, tell him he's on his way into town for supplies. Just tell him that. Don't ask him, what are you going to do? Because that puts it all on the player, and he doesn't know what he's going to do. He doesn't know anything about your world yet. But you say, go into town for supplies. You've established simple concepts. There's a town, and he has a thing he needs in it, so he's going to go there. All right? And then he's going to go to town. To give him a bunch of wolf pelts. Tell him, hey, while you're there, you can take all these wolf pelts you just got and sell them. Now he's going to get money. He didn't even do anything yet. He feels rewarded. He's more involved already, and nothing's really happened. All right, let's move on to your human fighter folk hero. Say, hey, you're in town, getting your armor polished and mended after your last battle. The blacksmith says he's going to have it ready for you. You're on your way to the blacksmith to pick it up. Don't charge him for it. Tell him he prepaid, because you don't want to charge your players for your plot hooks. Then they feel like they got cheated before the game started. So basically tell him that the money was already paid, so he doesn't have to mark it in on. And then you have your tiefling warlock. Tell him that wizard you were apprenticed to, for your sage background, he's missing. In fact, there's a thing in the sage background, I believe, that says you have a letter from a colleague that has a question you haven't really answered yet, and you've been thinking about it. Make it a philosophy question about the undead. Using necromancy is not inherently evil, but skeletons and zombies are. So does making them make you evil? And just have that be in that letter, and then have him wondering, is this guy turning into a necromancer, or is this guy just curious? Why is he asking this question? And now he's missing. Now you have a basic group. All you have to do, well, at this point, you have a basic group. They have some basic plot hooks. And that is where you start. You are now ready to begin your game.
That's question 2, is where do you start the game? And that's right. what you just answered. Question 2.
I didn't mean to overrun that. Sorry, but yeah. All right. So you've established your party.
So
There are many options.
the three. That's question three. How do you get your PCs to become a party and chase your plot? And you've got right down into that too. You
All right. So well, you've given them hooks, but you haven't given them an actual plot yet to chase. Because they don't know that your plot is going to be a necromancer is making an army. They don't know about that yet. Don't tell them on the outset. Just tell them the hooks that you've already given them. Where do you start? Literally, I mean by that. Where do you start? Like, do you start them just in a town, not together? That's not going to work. You can start them in a town square at their different booths, looking for stuff, shopping, or you can start them in a tavern, which is a classic. And it doesn't really matter where you start, but you have to then get them motivated to actually come together for the beginning. The easiest way to do that, honestly, is to attack them. If they're in a tavern, have a drunk pick a fight with the tiefling, because it says in the player's handbook that tieflings get a lot of hatred and racism because they look like they were descended from a devil or something, which they were. So have a drunk be like, hey, we don't like your kind here, and be blatantly cruel to your tiefling player. And make sure your player is okay with that and understands this is just a game and that you as a DM don't dislike him. But when he's does that, hopefully your other PCs will stand up for this character, and he may stand up for himself. That gives him one way to connect, and others to have a rogue be pickpocketing people and let him get caught and let them all chase the rogue. If you're in a town square, have it be a orphan gang of just little street urchins running around like Oliver Twist, just picking pockets and then giving the money to somebody who actually kind of runs it, some evil guy or gal who has organized them and like mistreats them. So they don't want to kill these kids, but they do want to stop this. And that puts them together immediately. But then it's, that gets them started. That unites the party. And that's the beginning of the game at this point. You have established the game and you have started the game. And your party is together.
So let me give you a little right now, because I think you've been giving a lot of real advanced advice. Like you're juggling a lot of balls here with different players. Oh, let the urchin do this and let the thief run wild with it. To me, you start the game. It can be as simple as everybody's hired by the same person. And you come together at his estate, and he tells you what the problem is. It's very straightforward. It's your first game. This is for beginners. So with your first game, you can just kind of lay it all out for them. Instead of, giving them the adventure sidelong, like, oh, you run into the adventure by shenanigans. That can be hard to pull off. So instead, if let's say there is a necromancer, a guy hires you all, says, my brother lives in another town and he's gone missing. He was into some, last letter I had from him showed he was into some evil kind of magic, but I want you to go find him for me, and this is how much money you're going to get for that. And bing bang boom, everybody's together, everybody has a common goal now.
Yeah, there are many ways to start the game. One is I call it the Hangover now, but I've been doing this since long before that movie, where you let your party start off in a room. They don't know each other. They don't remember last night, and they're all waking up, and they've got weird marks on them. Maybe one of them has a letter with a death threat, and they're trying to piece it all together. Now they need to work together to figure out what's going on.
Or everybody wakes up in a jail cell, and
yeah. That's a jail cell is one option. That implies that they did something illegal. Another option is put them in an actual dungeon that is not affiliated with the local law enforcement, like they've been captured. Or maybe they wake up as prisoners that are about to be made to fight in an arena, and they're going to want to try and break free.
One of the first adventures I ever read was Xandar's Dungeon. It was the basic D&D box. It wasn't the red box. It was the big long black box. It was called Xandar's Dungeon. And everybody wakes up in a prison cell. You are captured by Xandar, and you have to fight your way out of it.
I played that with you running it.
I did. I ran that for you. Ah. So
back in the day.
there are other ways. I like the celebration. The town is holding a celebration, and everybody's coming to party, and so are the player characters. And during the celebration, something bad happens, and the PCs get involved. I love that way.
That's actually not too different if you think about it from your basic tavern start, because you go there to have some fun, and then something goes wrong.
Exactly.
All right.
So that's how you kind of start the game. That's how you bring your players together, and you kind of have the party chase your plot. Personally, how do you actually run the game? I
don't think we talked about how to make them chase your plot yet.
Well, I guess.
No,
okay, let's talk a little more about that.
All right. So you, at this point, you have them, they've met each other, and they already have plot hooks, but I don't walk up to people and randomly say, hey, so I used to work for a wizard, and he's asking me weird questions about necromancy, because why would I share that with people I just met? So you need to find a way to unite them to actually start talking. So when I say earlier, I said you can attack them. Here's another way you can do it is attack them again, but this time make it a zombie. Or have somebody try and hire your group to say, hey, a woman says, my son passed away this past week from a plague, but before we could inter him, someone stole his body. And I went looking for someone to come and find him. Well, now you're like, well, yeah, okay, we'll accept money to go look for this. This sounds like a legit cause. So you've got the missing body, you've got zombie attacks, you can have rumors. And when you do that, and then when people start seeing a thread of different encounters that all involve zombies, they're going to start talking to each other. And that's how I manipulate the story.
Of course, you can always make it personal. And there's a lot of players who are like, oh, my family's dead. Well, now they're zombies.
No, that's nice. That'll do it. I don't know. I don't want to start off by killing off his family, but you can endanger them to get them motivated.
No, I mean,
but if they're already dead,
they're zombies. Like, and every group has a player that's like, oh, my family's dead. I don't want to deal with that stuff. They're no family. They're all dead. Dead. I'm like, okay, well, now they're zombies.
Well, earlier I think we said we had an elven ranger in the party. On his way to town, give him an extra hook saying, hey, you came across a graveyard and a sacred graveyard out in the woods that has been emptied. All of the graves are dug up. So that's just a thing he knows coming into this. It's not necessarily something he was going to pursue, but upon hearing things about zombies, well, hey, I remember an empty graveyard. And that gives the players things to go look into, like the missing woman. So you go see the missing woman, go to her house, figure out how they got in and stole the body of her kid, or go to that graveyard, look for clues, maybe go look for the tiefling's master.
So how do you actually run the game? There's prep work involved. So like Howard said, you're running an adventure about a necromancer, right? So you're going to go into your monster manual, and you're going to get zombie stats ready because you're going to be using that mainly. You're going to look to some other kind of things too. You got to spice it up a little. So maybe there's a little goblins that get involved too. So you'll have some goblin stats. They're in town, so make sure you have the guard stat handy, because if anybody gets in trouble, you'll want that. But otherwise, just kind of wing it. Like, understand in the game, like if we're using Dungeons and Dragons as an example, make sure you have a set of DCs, difficulty checks in mind. Like, they're first level, so my difficulty check should be no higher than 20, and that's the hard checks. And easy checks should be 10-ish, and medium checks should be maybe 15. Oh, I can't hear you, Howard.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. All right. I don't think I've ever done a check in 5th edition that was higher than 25. It's never really because I realize there's a point when they're getting so godlike that they're making those checks, but I don't see the reason to take that away from them because at 25 to me is almost a legendary, check. It's not something that average people can just do.
Yes.
So I don't want to take that away from them and be like, yes, well, because you're so good, I'm going to make everything harder. You have to balance it out to a point where
it's true.
Just because you're good, it should just happen more often
so
that you get what you think.
So for like first level, maybe 8, 12, 15 should be like your 8 for easy, 12 for medium, and 15 for hard, and then 20 is like super hard. And that should be fine.
That works.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you. If you want to make something just super easy, you can actually go as low as 5. But at that point, there's really no need to make them roll if they're skilled.
Yes.
Because if they get a +2 for proficiency and a +2 for their stat, all they have to do is roll a 1 and they got it.
All I'm saying is just keep in mind where you want to set your difficulties to your player before you start running the game. Because if you come out of the box with too high or too low, it's not fun.
Okay. But beyond skill challenges,
that said, that leads me into my next question.
Okay.
How do you know if your challenges are too hard or too easy?
You're talking challenges like encounters?
Yeah, or anything in the game. Here's an example. I was on the forums recently, and somebody said, "Hey, my player just got the Observant feat, which gives you +5 to your passive perception. Now his passive perception is 20, and they're just putting him up in front, and they can see every trap, and they're just walking through it. How can I nerf his ability?" Which I thought that was...
Yeah, you don't want to nerf someone's ability. The whole point of them buying that feat was so they could do that one special thing. And if you take that away from them, then you basically said, okay, you had a feat, and now you don't. So they're going to feel really robbed. Don't nerf it completely. Magic traps can get around that. You can just say, well, it's invisible, so your regular perception won't do it unless you have detect magic up, or something like that, or true sight, or one of those spells. So that'll limit it. Other things to do it is have somebody actively hiding something, and then it becomes a skill challenge, as in they roll and you roll, and it's not passive. That's easy ways to get around that, and I'm not saying get around it completely, just to make it so he doesn't always auto win. The other is have a master traps and put some stuff out there, and if he's got expertise, he can get over a 20 as the base that you have to look through.
Mm-hmm. Well, in that case, okay, I'd like to put out traps out there that he can just see.
Yeah, I'm not saying do it to all his traps. Just
if you start increasing the difficulty of the traps, a player is going to be like, well, now he's just increasing the difficulty because I can now look at them all. Be a little more clever than just doing that. In the game, in your dungeon, have them find a journal, or have the traps have a little plaque with the name of the person who made the trap, like he's signing it like he's a specialist. And that way, as the traps get more and more difficult, this journal says that this guy has been perfecting his trap craft, and he's getting better and better as we go. And the traps are getting harder and harder to spot. And that way, when the guy who has the passive perception of 20 walks into a trap that's over a 20 because he thought he could see everything and it suddenly goes off, he's not like, oh, you did this just to mess with me because I have that. No, I gave you the clues earlier.
All right. Another thing about challenges, we're talking like encounters. You need to don't if something looks like it's going too easy, don't automatically beef up your encounter to make sure it becomes a real challenge, unless it's like an epic story ender. if it's just a regular challenge, if you threw some goblins out there and they're mopping the floor with them, let them have it. It doesn't hurt. You can have another encounter later. And if they
Exactly.
find an encounter that is hard, don't automatically go, I guess he missed that roll, or just start subtracting hit points from your NPCs to make them easier. It's okay if sometimes the PCs realize they need to run away. That said, if it's happening too often, then maybe you need to look at what you're doing and balance it out better.
I ran into a game. I was playing a game just this last week where we were assaulting this cultist area. But as we were kind of mopping the floor with these guys, because we weren't holding back. We wanted to make sure that all these guys, we had to make sure that none of them escaped.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't holding back. But since we weren't holding back, we were really beating them down. The Game Master started throwing more and more enemies at us. It seemed like he was just putting ads in just to make it more difficult. But because he did that, by the time we got to his final encounter, we were really spent.
Got nothing left?
We had nothing left. And that's because he thought earlier encounters were too easy and he had to beef them up. Which, in fact, those encounters were fine because they were paced out and we had to go to more... We had to hit more and more... we had more encounters down the way. Especially the final encounter. And once that final encounter was there, it was just like, wow, this is way too much now. There's no way we're going to win. We spent everything. And then the Game Master's like, well, why did you spend everything? Because you kept throwing more stuff at us.
Yeah, there's really only so much you can do. And that's something else you have to keep in mind is after each encounter, if they're not taking short rests or long rests, they're running out of stuff other than their most basic attacks. The wizard's, cantrip attacks or the fighter's direct sword swings that don't involve that, the extra, what is it, the thing that you do where you're a fighter and you get 10 hit points plus your level back, second wind, things like that. Those all start to go away and you just break down to, I'm just doing a D8 attack each round. And I hope it
that's
hits
it.
this guy eventually.
We have no more second wins. We have no more extra attacks. We're just done. So let's get to our last question. We only have a couple minutes left here. How do you make a game exciting? Where's that wow factor?
For me, describe everything, especially anything that interests or excites you. And because you do it that way, it's going to really give people an idea of your gaming style. If you want to describe, if you want to gross out your PCs and really get into the core that's left behind at a murder scene they're investigating, or really describe as they're hitting something, the sword slicing through the goblin and his guts spilling forward, that's going to give them the imagery that you like to share. And you'll go with the drool hanging from a creature's jaw, all of that. If you want to make a game horrifying or disgusting, go with that imagery. If you want to make them feel like they're in a Tolkien elven city, describe these beautiful white pillars that make up each building and spiral staircases that appear to have no structural support beneath them, creating a magical effect. The more you describe, the more engrossed they become, and the more interested they get. The other way to make it exciting is, of course, to make it challenging. Because if it's not challenging, eventually people are going to get bored. But if it's too challenging, they're going to feel like they can do nothing and get bored. So you got to keep the challenge factor up.
So that is it for today for the tips, just beginner tips on how to game master. We always end our show with a segment we call the back of the book.
Yes.
This is a little segment we do where we talk about little fun stuff you may not know about gaming, things that are in the books that you may not have known, or just stuff we like because we like it. And Howard, you got the back of the book this time.
All right. I'm going to do one that I actually discovered as a weird throwaway line in a video game, Planescape Torment. There's a skull that follows you around as an NPC who is your ally. And at one point, when asked what he is, he makes the offhand joke, "I'm the head of Vecna, baby." And you're like, "What? The head of Vecna?" Well, the two famous magic items: the Eye of Vecna and the Hand of Vecna. If you cut off your hand and put on the hand, you're supposed to get some cool superpowers. If you pluck out your eye and put in the Vecna's eye, you get some cool superpowers. There was never really a Head of Vecna that I knew of. I thought it was just a random joke. I came across it again later, and it turns out there was a Dragon magazine write-in where somebody sent in this story from his campaign where he was running a West Marches style game. He had two different parties, and one of them was trying to set up the other, and they created a Head of Vecna, which was just basically rumors about a magic item that was a head that they had, that it was the Head of Vecna, to try and get the other party to chop their heads off and put this thing on. First, apparently, one of the druids in the first party, the one that was making the trap, didn't get the message, found the thing, got through the traps that his own party had set around this thing, and then ordered his animal companions to take his head and then put this head on him. So their druid died. They reset the trap, and then they got the word out to the other party that was supposed to get this, and then the other party, they lost 2 members to this before apparently the dungeon master finally just cracked up and couldn't hold it in anymore. I was like, stop doing this. Which I'm guessing. I don't really know. I wasn't there, but I can't imagine watching my players just kill themselves one after the other. It was great. And then it got after that Dragon magazine thing, there was the Planescape reference, and then apparently it was actually in Die Vecna Die as a trap because it's listed as a reliquary for Vecna. But it's not, and it's just that same story, and you try to see if you can convince your players in playing through this module you're running to chop each other's heads off and put this thing on there. So it became an actual canon thing. It is actually a part of D&D now, and it's hilarious, and I wanted to share that story as our back to the book.
It's pretty good. Well, we're out of time. We got to go. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. We're here every Wednesday night. And I guess that's it. Say goodbye.